Hey everyone, and welcome to the 8-Figure Agent Podcast. My name is Jared Larsen, and I'm joined by my co-host Matt Walker, CEO of Swivel, the world's most flexible financial services CRM. Our mission is to build community, a community where we can empower each other to achieve remarkable success in the financial sector. Join Matt and me every week as we will motivate you to reach new heights in your career and unlock your full potential. Reaching your next level of success starts now. Welcome back to the 8-Figure Agent. I'm Jared Larsen alongside my co-host Matt Walker. Today we are focusing on one thing and one thing only, and that is mindset. And the fact of the matter is mindset matters. It matters in everything we do, and we're going to explore this in depth today. Matt, what are your thoughts about mindset? Where do we go?
Well, so there's kind of broad categories with mindset, right? There's optimism, there's hope, there's this scarcity mentality mindset, fixed mindset, growing mindset. You know, I think there's a lot of different types. Most of them come down to an optimism. Most of them come down to how you view the world and how I think our experiences certainly come to play heavily into the way our mindsets work. But, to me, Jared, my hope, and I think your hope as well from something like this, is we're doing this, 8-Figure Agent podcast because we want people to be successful, not just in a small realm, but in a realm that's bigger than they can even fathom. And in order to do that, you have to open up your mindset. You have to get out of your own way. And, that's the key to me is just kind of starting there. And I think it starts young. In fact, Jared and I, we know each other really well. We know our kids very well, or his kids and my kids, and we know each other's kids. And Jared, you've got a story that I think has got to start this off with mindset. And your son Ryder, if it's okay to talk about it, you've had some stories from swimming pools to bike rides, and let us have it. I think it's a great place to start.
Yeah, this is cool. This has just been a story that's transformed my life and changed my life. Well, I think we're supposed to, steward or teach our children, right? I have found it's my experience that I've been humbled and taught more through my children. But my wife and I made a decision. We had some struggles in trying to conceive and have children, and it became a big thing, and it was hard. Nevertheless, over a period of time, we were able to, and my wife became pregnant, and we made a deal together because I genuinely believe that all success starts here. It starts in the mind. Success starts in the mind. Name an Olympic athlete, name a professional athlete that doesn't have a strong mindset. The top athletes in the world, they do things differently. They think differently. And so we made a commitment that we were going to start teaching our children a growth mindset and one that will produce resilience. So every single night my wife was pregnant, I would bend over to her belly and I would cup my hands and I'd say, "My name is Ryder Bruce Larsen and I do hard things." Now, we didn't have the name picked out, but I was suggesting to my wife that maybe Ryder Bruce Larsen would be a really good name. And my name is Ryder Bruce Larsen. I do hard things. And then it would be followed by some offbeat rock and roll song that I would sing. And I just loved this opportunity to engage with my wife, but also engage with this little child. Well, believe it or not, 9 months later, what happens when you're pregnant? You go through the birthing process and a baby boy was born. We actually did name it Ryder Bruce Larsen. So the power of suggestion in the universe does work for anyone that's wondering about that. But he came out and I was like, "So what do we do?" And Kayla said the same thing with consistency. Every single night, still to this day, we sit down with our children. My name is Ryder Bruce Larsen. I do hard things. And then we sing a couple different songs with them. We have a night routine and we did this every single night. And I will be honest with you, 6 months in, I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is so dumb. He can't even understand me. He can't speak. He can't talk. We're changing diapers and we feed him. But then over a period of time, my wife just kept breathing life into me saying, "Let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it." Well, I don't even know, 15 months, a year and a half, 18 months, he started to talk. And the first things that he started saying outside of mom and dad was, "My name's Weidel. My name's Weidel Buswassen." And yes, you couldn't understand him. It was muffled and it was very awkward at first. But eventually he could say, "My name is Weidel Buswassen and I do hard things." And it was unbelievable. And one day we're sitting on the couch and we're looking up at the big screen TV that we had in our front room there. And he says, we're watching the Tour de France because I'm a big nerd that likes to get in spandex and ride a bike. And I'm talking to him like he understands me about Chris Froome, this bike rider at the time. And I'm like, he's the best rider in the world and blah, blah, blah. He's going to attack. And he looks up, totally oblivious to what's going on around him. And he says, as he's pointing to the screen, Daddy, I do it. Daddy, I do it. And I was like, holy cow, this is every dad's dream. It's the moment. And I yell across the house. I'm like, baby, we're going to the bike shop. We're getting him a bike. And so we run down there, and their marketing efforts produced a little blue Trek bike outside. We didn't even need to go in the store, and he had picked out his dream bike. There was a problem. The bike had training wheels on it. And I did not want those training wheels on that bike. And so I said, I'll buy the bike if we can remove the training wheels. And my wife wasn't super ecstatic about that. She's like, we need to leave them on. And actually, the gentleman, the wrench hand that worked on my bikes, he's like, Mr. Larsen, I think that's a bold decision, but it would probably make sense to leave those training wheels on that bike so he can develop sufficient leg strength so that he might be able to pedal it. Now, mind you, he had just turned 2. Just turned 2. So we end up compromising. We buy him an astronaut helmet that fits on his head so he would be safe. And we buy the bike and we run. We get the bike, throw it in the Jeep, and we're driving home. And my wife is sitting over there giving me the stink eye, and yeah. I know I'm in big trouble. And Ryder's in the back. You know, kids have a way of like escalating everything. He's like, bike, bike, bike. You know, he's cheering everything on. We get home, and in this moment of glory, where my son's going to exceed all expectations, I put my hand behind his seat after we got his helmet on him on a gradual sloping driveway. And I taught him just a little bit, and I go, whew, and I pass him, and he goes 1 pedal stroke, 2 pedal stroke, and he falls. I ran over there super quick. You can imagine it, Dad. It's okay, buddy. Yeah. I'm brushing him off. You got this. Come on, we can do this. Number 2, whew, couple 2, 3, 4 pedal strokes. Boom, he wrecks. This happened a total of 4 times. And on the 4th time, as I him down the driveway, he took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'm like, no way. And at the bottom of the driveway, on about the 8th or 9th pedal stroke, he crosses his handlebars up, and he goes straight over his handlebars and hits the only part that's not protected from his astronaut helmet right on his chin, and he's hurt. And you can clearly see he's got blood coming from his chin, and Kayla and I, we run down there, and in attempt to help him as he was struggling and crying, big old alligator tears coming down his face, before we got to him, he stood up and he said, my name is Ryder, Bruce Larsen, and I do hard things. And dang, it dropped me to my knees. It just dropped me to my knees. So Matt, when we talk about mindset and people struggle and they say, oh, that's hocus pocus. Here's a kid that's 2 years old that has no business being on a bike, has no business riding a bike without training wheels. And he understands a principle so deeply in his head that I do hard things. He even knows what hard things look like. He knows what hard things feel like, and he's embraced them. And the question that I have for the audience here is, what would have happened if we had this same experience with my son and I had chosen to leave the training wheels on? Now, I get it. Training wheels ensure safety. But what would have happened if I would have left those training wheels on? And that is intriguing to me. He would have been safe. He would have learned to ride a bike. And a lot of people may disagree with the decision that me and my wife made in terms of our parenting style. But the question that came out of this for me, and I hope for people here right now, what training wheels do you have on in your life right now, today, that's holding you back? What mindset have you adopted over time, through experiences, through fear, through challenges, through success, that have culminated to where you are, that have helped you or hurt you in adopting these training wheels? And I would purport right now, take them off. Take off your training wheels. Understand that if you take the training wheels off, you might fall on your chin, and you will absolutely embrace some bruises and some scrapes and some scars. but you will be better off for it in the long run. And that requires a growth mindset. That requires someone who thinks of abundance and doesn't come from a place of scarcity. And Matt, that's the story of the writer effect and how it's really shaped and changed even my perspective and mindset.
I love it. Love it. Love it. And now Ryder's, riding on motorcycles, jumping through the air, and he's all sorts of crazy awesome. So I did some leadership training this last weekend, and there was a individual who kind of spoke about protecting. And he used the example of the musk ox in the Arctic circles. And I don't know if you've seen those musk ox, are like those big hairy things with the horns that look like they belong on Star Wars. And what they do when wolves come near or any type of predator, these musk ox circle around the young. And so it kind of protects them, if they will. And I think that sometimes with protection, and especially those who need protection, our children in particular, we build up this mentality of this is what we need to do. And, I was kind of in the leadership training, someone showed that, and I was kind of thinking about it for a little bit. And, the first thought that came to my mind is I was like, okay, if we're supposed to be protecting youth or younger people, that's great, but how do you get young people to get in the circle? I think the kind of parents just circle around it, and you're looking back and your kid's out in the front yard, playing with the wolves, throwing rocks at them, right? And you're like, I built this fortress for you. I did everything I can, and you're out there. And, as kind of the leadership training went on, some thoughts started coming to my mind that the best thing that we can do in leading, and especially other people, is allow them that opportunity to, learn from outside the circle, learn from off the training wheels. And I think the reason why is, man, you want to talk about a mindset of resilience in this business, you got to take a knock or two.
Sure.
You have to. In fact, the sooner you can take a knock or two, the sooner you can learn to get over it, because the true success comes not if I get the knock. You're going to get the knock. Let's just practice on how to get over the knock. And I think that there's some things that we can learn to avoid getting hurt, right? Like, if the wolf's in the front yard, maybe you should go inside. But at the same time, I think that there's this mentality of not only how our culture in the United States is raising young people, how we've been raised, but we talk about our generation, we were able to go outside and not tell our parents. You can't even let your kids go out in the front yard without looking at them, But our mentality has been shifting. It's been shifting protection. It's been shifting around. We don't want to get hurt. Don't let the hurt happen. Don't let the hard lessons happen. And I'm telling you, one of the most beautiful mindsets that we have to get around this industry is the hurt does happen. Mm-hmm. Things don't go your way. In fact, they don't go your way almost every day. Almost every day, something doesn't go your way. And success comes in how we overcome those things. The mindset is, I'm in an industry where things never go my way, and man, I love it, because I'm going to find a way around it. I'm going to find a way to make it go good. I'm going to find a way to help someone, and they may not even like me at this stage, or they may not, recognize it, or it's an employee, whatever it may be. That's got to be the first step to a mindset. And I think that comes down to embracing challenges.
There is so much value in that story, Matt, of the muskox. And as you're talking about that, it was percolating some feelings in me. And then I started relating the circle, the outside, with comfort and discomfort, right? Comfort can be found where? Inside the circle.
Inside the circle.
Inside the circle. Yet where we grow, I'm not suggesting we don't grow in the circle. We do, certainly. But if we simply stay in this comfort zone and we don't wander out past the circle to at least start exploring and touching and feeling and seeing and doing, we will never experience the discomfort that is required for growth. And in this industry, I just see too many people get paralyzed staying inside the comfort and the confines of what they do know, rather than saying, Matt, what should I be doing? What do I need to be doing? And that crap is the stuff that I don't want to do. I don't like. Why? Because it's uncomfortable. And it forces me to say, oxes, I love musk ox. I think you said musk ox. I love you. I'm going to go out on my own. And the first time I'll go 20 feet. And if I see a wolf, I'll run back. The next time I'll go 50 feet, right? And the length of this that we can go out as we learn, and now we're out a quarter mile, and now we move all the way across the country. I don't know. I wonder if you think, does that have any correlation to success? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a version of this in everything that we do, and I think what you're saying is relatable to lots of aspects of our life. I kind of want to focus. As where our listeners are sitting there saying, okay, well, how is this applicable? Going back to attitude and perspective, help us make good choices when hard things happen.
What do you mean, Matt? What do you mean with that?
Yeah, so a fundamental belief I have is I know that there's some bad people out there. I get it, and it's true. But my day-to-day, the environment that I feel blessed to be in, I'm around a lot of good people. And good people don't just hurt your feelings. They're not out there to hurt your feelings. People in general are just hurt. And when they're hurt, they act out. And so as I interact with people, I've learned you can't take things personally because you don't know their side of the story. And even if you know them very well, you don't even know emotionally where they're at that moment. And so giving everyone the benefit of the doubt as you're working with them and trying to see what they're saying, and you can kind of put yourself in their spot of where they're coming from, that's an interpersonal skill that brings joy. It brings happiness. It takes a hard day and makes it easy. Because if you can sit there and look at someone and seeing like them being tense up and frustrated and almost perceived to be mad at you or mad at the world, and they say something sharply that's super offensive, if your mindset is this is a good person having a bad day, then all of a sudden you look at them with love, and you're like, you look at them at caring about them, and you don't take the comment so offensive. Instead, you just kind of want to work through the situation with the individual. And so that's a mindset component of like, as you work with people, my general mindset is that everyone I meet with is good, wonderful people. Now, there's another part that happens when I believe they're good, wonderful people, I treat them well. And man, you know what happens? You want to be love other people more. Mm-hmm. And I talk to my kids about this. Any listener, I'd want to have this. If I could give one gift of my joy that I have, it is I'm way more concerned on letting people know I love them than needing to be loved. The irony is I can't love people enough for the amount of love that I receive back. And I see people that like kind of know that, they try it, and they just don't have enough faith to make it actually work. They kind of go a day or two or three, and then they give up, and no one ever pays attention to me, and blows up, and you go inside, and your life goes horrible again. And these little tiny skills of fundamental belief people are good, and then number two is I'm going to love everyone that I come because these are good people and they deserve to be loved well. You take those two components, and you can learn a lot now about any situation you run into. Because almost any situation that we deal with are interpersonal situations. Someone's done you wrong for something. There's a competitor. There's a client that said no. There is government things that aren't going to let you work this way. There's taxes that aren't working. There's a company that ripped you off because they didn't say what they're going to do. And all of a sudden, you start taking the good from the people and saying these poor decisions are determining who they are. They're bad people. And I'm surrounded by bad, horrible people that aren't any good, and you just start falling apart. But if you can overcome that and believe in everyone in every situation, even a company, it's kind of bad, but I can see where they're coming from, but we'll work through it. When you start talking and people can hear that you feel that way, they want you to win. Companies, our carriers that we work with that rip off our clients and send the wrong form out and do this and do that, If you go in there screaming your head off and yelling at them, you're out. They know. Like, it's a great way to be known. And they're not going to want to work with you. But you go in there, I understand, okay, how can we make this work? Our client, not my client, our client, how can we help them? And you start working through these interpersonal situations. All of a sudden, every business move, every decision you're making, you're viewing with that lens. And so everything can be overcome because people you love, people you care about, you want them to win. And so you're cheering them on. And in the process, the weirdest thing happened. They cheer you on. You don't even know you want that. And all of a sudden, you're like, I can't let them down. They love me. They're cheering me on. I'm going to do this too. And that optimism cycle just spins and spins and spins and spins and spins. And if you do it long enough, you've built up a lot of goodwill.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, you're in this world of goodwill where all of a sudden people are like, everything goes his way. Everything always, I hear that a lot in my life. And I'm thinking, no, not really, but man, I got a lot of people that love me. Man, I do have a lot of people that love me.
Let's talk about the lens that you refer to, because I've spent a lot of time there. There's an old quote that I want to sum it up by, and then I'll illustrate that. What you focus on, you move towards. And I'm going to say that again. What you focus on, you move towards. And has anybody that's listening as a little child learned how to ride a bike, and then you're like, oh, there's a rock on the road. I'm riding towards the rock. There's the rock. And you're like, I hope I don't hit the rock. And bam, sure enough, now you're like flipping over your bike and tumbling. Because where were your eyes? Your eyes were focused on the rock is where you steer. Another illustration, number 2, when you go to take a motorcycle riding class and they teach you how to turn through a corner, they don't teach you to look straight in front of you. They teach you to look through the corner. Where your eyes are, your body will naturally follow. It's the same in our mind. And I think it's so intriguing because we'll hear people that say things like this, and this is not meant facetiously, but it's like, man, I'm trying to date people and I just keep dating the same people and they're just not the right people. Or we have people that talk about problems all the time. I have this going wrong and this problem and this problem. And you know what? What we focus on, we move towards. If we're focusing on problems, we're going to get more problems. If we're focusing on the same type of person we're dating, we're going to get more of that in our life. Conversely, if we focus on love that Matt is talking about, or we focus on abundance, or we focus on gratitude, or whatever the case may be, we will move closer to that and we will start attracting that in our lives. But it starts here. And our thoughts eventually become our words. And when we can start speaking them, our words will become action. And when we can consistently do an action over a long period of time, we will have results. And so what Matt's referring to in his life about the results that everybody's saying, well, it just seems like your life is easier, or that you just keep getting this or whatever. It has been a repetitive, consistent discipline. Matt has taught himself to think differently, to speak differently, to attract differently, but to invoke action on it, ultimately culminating in the result of whatever people are seeing. Does that make sense?
No, I think it's spot on. If I was listening to myself during that talk, I would probably be saying, well, that seems kind of naive. There are bad people out there. They're going to screw you. There are bad companies. And I've ran into them. And I've learned the hard way. You want to trust everyone and expect everyone to be good. And you soon learn in the knocks of real life that if you have that kind of naive mentality, that it can hurt you, and I've had it business-wise really hurt me. My own reputation was put on the line because of trust and faith that I put in people that I believed in and I loved, and when stuff like that happens, you're put into again a mindset. The mindset is, oh, I've learned my lesson. I can't trust another person again. Oh, I've learned my lesson. All businesses are crooks. I can't believe or work with anyone ever again. And when we have a fundamental belief, and that was mine, people are good and you can trust people and work with people and they'll work with you. If you believe in them enough, love them enough, they'll treat you right as well. And when that fundamental belief is broken, it can be tough in every aspect of your life, and business. It happens in business. So there's also this mindset of overcoming. and a mindset of resilience. And Jared, tell me what you do. You've lived a resilient life. How have you overcome some of your moments when you feel like fundamental beliefs of yours have been crashed, and how do you overcome them? How do you work through them in business when people you've trusted have done you wrong, or business opportunities that you were hoping for fell apart? How do you move forward?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Yes, I have failed so many times. I have failed in every aspect of my life: parenting, individual, spiritual, business. And I believe that in all of these moments that we experience, whether it's the good person versus bad person, or it's I made this decision or I made that decision, there ultimately becomes a crux or a moment in the experience, good or bad, that I call the make it or break it moment. And it's the moment where you choose whether you adopt a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. This is what I mean. In the situation where Matt's describing, all people are bad, right? Everybody's bad and they did me wrong and this is horrible and I will never deal with people again. I have just chosen now to adopt a fixed mindset. Everybody does this. No matter what, it will always happen to me. And that was the make it or break it moment versus choosing what was acted on. I have chosen in my life to be an agent, not an object. I choose that I have agency in all of my things to choose fixed or mind, but more often than not, people, and myself included in many different circumstances, have chosen to become an object. And when we choose to become an object, we are a force that is acted upon. And if we choose to be the force that's acted upon, what we're saying is I'm giving my agency away, and whatever happens, come what may, and I guess I just have to deal with it. And I don't subscribe to that. Yeah. What I do is I subscribe through my trials and through the things that have happened in my life to choose differently. And so there have been so many times in my life where I've had my make it or break it moments, sometimes where I have chosen the fixed mindset. But there's a couple things that I've done. Number one, I've surrounded myself with really good people. So much so that I ask them for permission when I choose something like that. And Matt is one of my best friends who will absolutely call me out with love and care to say, hey, can we talk about this? And he'll ask me thoughtful questions. And that has been something that's really helped me out of those challenges and those funks. But I would also say that I have had to learn to create the mindset. Let me back up. Mindset is a muscle. Creating a habit is a muscle. And it's just like that muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it will become. And so I've had to teach myself over time to adapt this mindset that is strong relative to creating healthy habits in my life. And so if I could go back to your question, Matt, I would say, number one, I will identify the habits that I've created in my life. So let me back up and when my 19, 20, and in my 30s, even into my 40s to some extent. You can create a habit of quitting. And where does the habit of quitting start? It starts right here. Remember, back when I was 24 and I quit, that was one time. But then the second time I quit, and then the third time I quit, and pretty soon I had completed so many reps of quitting that I became a starter and not a finisher, and I quit everything. And I had created a habit in my life. And so I had to change that habit. I had to change the way I was thinking. And I think that relative to your hard comment, too many people experience in our industry challenges and hard. Their make it or break it moment becomes something where they develop a habit that they never intended to develop. It wasn't because they're bad people or because they don't know. They just made the decision. And what happens is they continue to make that decision. And consequently, sometimes we end up where we don't even want to be. Right? And so in my life, I've had to persevere in creating good habits, surrounding myself with good people. But where do you start? You've got to start in the mind and tell a different narrative. Rewrite the story. If I'm a habit quitter, I need to become a starter and a finisher and run towards that. And that's one of my superpowers. I will run towards a hard thing. And that is finish the race all the way to the finish line. You don't quit, you don't cheat, you don't stop early, but create that habit of finishing. And I think that's what's helped me in my life overcome the many failures that I've experienced.
That's awesome. There was a guy that I work with named Jeff Tupper, And he has some interesting idiosyncrasies, but one of them is if he gets an email, he answers everything right away, like right away. And I kind of thought, well, that's great, fantastic, but where's your boundaries, man? Like, you got personal life stuff, you got other thing, like, you know, when do you do it? He's like, well, no, when I'm at work time, there's no reason to postpone it because it stresses me out to get it done. I just want to get it done and knock it out, and it's out of sight, out of mind. And I kind of saw this attitude, and you guys seen the attitude with different people that, like, they just jump on the situation right away. I think most of us can kind of somewhat relate to this, to like a diet or working out, where you're like, tomorrow I'm going to eat healthy. Tomorrow I'm going to start my running. Tomorrow, you know, and then tomorrow never comes. And, you know, or you do run one time and whatever, there's Gates Barbecue, and you can't say no to Gates Barbecue, especially when you're in Kansas City. That's just, that's wrong. So you're going to eat it. Well, there's something about the mindset component with overcoming a failure or overcoming a setback or overcoming a day in a moment. Tomorrow is anxiety. Tomorrow is full of fear. You know, take it on now. And I would say successful people find the way to get the mindset to shift right away. Find the positive in it right away. The positive will take out the anxiety. The positive will take out a fear. Fear and anxiety slow you down, they stop you, and they'll ruin you in your tracks. Everyone that I have ever met in my life, if they can push that fear and anxiety away, they're smart enough to see what good could happen on it. And so my challenge is, you know, be a Jeff Tupper in that moment, get it done right away, make that positive right away in that moment. And the fears, they'll exist. They'll sit there on your shoulder. You know, the anxieties will sit there in your stomach, but let the optimism of how I'm going to fix it and the hope of how to make this work just charge you forward. You know, just, the only other way I can do it is I love the World War II movies. I get really lost in them. So if someone doesn't watch these, they're like, I don't know what that guy's talking about. But the bombers in World War II, and some of you guys have seen some of the movies that have been out in Apple, and the, you know, Memphis Belle and all these different things, but even some of the historical recounts are fascinating, where each one of these men that got up into these bombers, you know, they talk about this emotion of like knowing the death rate in these bombers were just incredibly high. And as they would pull themselves up into this bomber, they didn't want to go. I mean, zero desire to go, but they kind of just like, I'm going anyways, here I go. And I don't want the other guys let them down or any. It's like that attitude, that courage is what our mindset needs to have. It's like the moment hit, I know a bunch of bad can happen. I know the fears, I know the anxiety. I've got to find the positive, I've got to find the courage, and I've got to just focus on that. And all the bad that can happen through the process, I got to keep focusing on that. And that is how you work your way through it, because it doesn't mean something bad won't happen as positive as you are. It means it's going to happen, and you've got to keep that mindset strong, because that's how you navigate yourself through the process. And that navigation may be a day thing, that navigation may be 10 months, that navigation may be 4 years. But if you continue to be positive, you will navigate through it, and you'll be stronger on the other side.
That's incredible. It made me think of a quote that one of my friends shared with me. It was from Nick Saban, the coach of Alabama, the once coach at Alabama, an exceptional coach, winning record, amazing. And he said this, I don't know, I might be screwing this up, but maybe it was in their locker room or something, but it said, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And Matt, what does that quote mean to you? When I share that and it lands on you, like, what does it mean to you?
Way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If I have a core belief in certain parts of my mindset and I stay strong to that mindset of what they are, maybe it's abundance. Every action I have has an abundance mentality, meaning I share, I'm generous, I'm open. You know, whether it's a conversation, there'll be plenty of time for me to talk. I can listen. I have plenty of time to talk. If it's a food, I don't need to eat it all. People will be able to get as much I can eat later. If it's money, there's plenty of clients out there. I will find the clients. I don't need to be stingy. You know, I don't need to be that selfish. But if your overall mindset is a lack of abundance, scarcity, or you've grown up with scarcity, so you don't know abundance can exist, it's hard, man. Every time there's a conversation, you're talking, you know? You're the one that never listens to anyone else. You're the one who's trying to be first in line because there might not be enough. You know, you tend to be, you know, just sitting in alone, there's never enough people. There's never enough. And so everything becomes that way. So I think to me, that's the mindset. It goes back to the mindset. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything, is what our core beliefs are, and then our mindsets supporting those core beliefs will control our actions, whether we want them to or not.
Matt, let me give our listeners some encouragement here, and maybe this is kind of a recipe for maybe how you can get through this. I'm going to share with you what we've adopted in our family. A good friend of mine, Levi Gurno, actually shared this with me. But when something comes at you, right, and it's not good, it's negative, it has an effect on you, it's crummy, you don't want it, it's less desirable. We all get it, and it happens to all of us. I'm not suggesting that we just poo-poo it and never embrace it or address it, because emotions are real.
Yeah.
This is what he shared with me. Why don't you just adopt a mindset that you can have a 5-minute funeral? You got 5 minutes, Matt. You can piss, moan, complain, cry, laugh, whatever you want. You got 5 minutes. Then at the end of 5 minutes, let's go back to the discussion I was having earlier. You can either choose to be a victim or you can choose to be the victor. And I think that all too often we just stay in the 5-minute funeral. And the 5-minute funeral becomes an hour, a day, a week, a month. And then pretty soon we're like, holy crap, I'm in the spiral. I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I get it. That does happen. But if we can train ourselves to have a 5-minute funeral, express some of the emotion, get it off your chest, but then boom, the light switch comes on and you say, I get to choose to be a victim or a victor. All right, what do I do, Matt? And you know, it's almost that like, oh crap, there's Matt Walker in the back of my head again. I need to choose the victor. I should be the victor. And I just think it's a way to help us frame the way that we can think about these and address some of these challenges. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that, you know, some of you are either alone working and you're, you know, individual producers by yourself, and there's benefits to that, less interpersonal things you have to deal with, but there's also some negatives. There's some lonely moments, and there's some, you know, lack of support. Most of us, though, are with someone, working with someone, or have to get through this life, and especially in our business, our clients are other people, and they have mindsets as well. I think that there's a high need for patience for others in their mindsets, and then patience with ourselves too in our mindsets. And I feel like it's one of those things with mindsets, we just expect it to be like, oh, I had a conversation about it, now go be perfected. And I think of Carson Wood-Manzi's thing, that simple and easy are not the same thing. It's very simple to explain, you should think positively. Easy is not the same. It's simple to say walk up a mountain. It's not necessarily easy to walk up the mountain.
Yeah.
And so just remember that with yourself as well. It's like, just because we talk about positivity, or you expect others to be positive, or you expect other people to have a mindset of abundancy, you don't know what they grew up with. You don't know what their challenges are. In fact, their challenges may be so extreme, we should be cheering them on anytime they show any sort of bit of abundance mentality. So I think that's an important part of the journey of working with our clients. Be patient with them, listen to them, understand their mindsets, and then in addition to that, our employees that we work with as well.
Let's talk about a super important topic. I love this from a leadership standpoint. I want to talk about criticism as it relates to mindset. And how we like, okay, so Matt comes at me one day and he just starts criticizing me, or my wife just starts chirping into my ear, rah, 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 rah. Like it's negative, right? It's horrible. It's awful. It's like, what mindset are we adopting? Matt, how can criticism be a positive? How can it be a negative? Like, share your thoughts on this, because it's an intriguing concept to me relative to where people move and how they make decisions.
Yeah, so my father-in-law, Craig Smith, is one of the most amazing people with feedback and criticism that I've ever met in my life. Absolutely fantastic.
Masterful communicator too.
Oh, just brilliant. In fact, his his interest in progressing as an individual is so high that he genuinely wants to know your authentic feelings of him. And he will ask great questions in a way of saying, hey, tell me about how I'm doing. How can I make your life better? And what have I done recently that may have offended you that would be good? Have you noticed our family culture? What are the things you like about our family culture? And what are some things you think could be different? In fact, he's been so good at opening himself up to criticism. His 3 amazing, wonderful daughters are really good at communicating to him ways that he can be better. And he's fantastic. He takes it. The problem is the poor boys that these 3 girls married are not masterful in receiving that wonderful feedback. And so I've got myself in some moments being like, this is really good feedback. I'm not ready for this. I'm not emotionally ready to handle this. And so what does it do? It comes back and lashing back out. So I think that that's a huge important thing to take. Look, none of us are going to be a Craig Smith in one day, but great leaders can take it. And great leaders have enough confidence in who they are that they can internalize it, recognize it, and make something positive out of it. And if we can't, great. Just be patient with ourselves. We're growing. But once we start getting offended, I mean, we're either being offended because what they're saying is so horribly wrong that it does not even fit society norms and is completely inappropriate, that we should hopefully have enough pity to maybe overcome it, although there's also things that I hope I'm putting this off, that it's just wrong. But the day-to-day communication from those that you love, you call friends and family, I'm not there yet, Jared, but I want to be a Craig Smith. I'm just not there yet.
Yeah. I had a business coach one time as we sat down, and he was running me through a series of questions similar to what Craig was giving to you. He says, have I said anything that stings you today?
Oh.
And I'm like, yeah, like 90% of this conversation is zinging me. It's sting. It's like an electric shock.
Yeah.
And he said, I want you to go home and think about that. And ultimately, and it was such a cool experience for me, because then I go home, I'm like, wow, holy cow, that's true. I probably should focus on that. And when I separated myself from the emotion, it was really a great learning experience. But I want to share a story about in college. I was playing soccer on the college team. We practiced, there's a bunch of lights around us, but it's light time at this point. And our coach said, we're going to do one thing. And this one thing we had to at least show some sort of aptitude to at least learn it or demonstrate it. And we couldn't do it. And man, players were screwing up. And the defense, I was on the offensive side, the defense was just eating it up. And they were going harder, and we were screwing up, and they were going harder. And pretty soon, our soccer coach steps in, loses his mind, and he's like, we will stay here till it's dark. I'll turn the lights on. And no kidding, that guy went and flipped the lights on, and we practiced for 4 hours. Anybody on my soccer team will know this story is absolutely incredible. And he came at us hardcore. He gave us criticism. And how did we respond? We were pissed.
Yeah.
And we took it personally, and we were angry, and we played like that. It wasn't until we started to accept some of the criticism, actually try some of the things that maybe were good for us, that we eventually accomplished that. And that night, I think we went home. I don't even know. One of my mates would have to tell me like 9, 10 at night. And it was really crazy. But I think about this. Criticism does have a good place when it comes from a good place.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us to think about that. If it stings us a little bit, just think about that. There may be something you need to change.
And I think that that's the key here. When criticism comes from a good place, because there's some bad out there that we need to be sensitive around. But the FMO that I'm a part of, the kind of bunch of guys that should have and gals that should have gigantic egos, they kind of say egos out the door when you come in. I'm like, we'll see how this goes. But it really is amazing. There's a bunch of incredible men and women that should have these great gigantic egos, and when they get together, it is absolutely fantastic to watch the learning that occurs when egos put to the side. Egos and that harder shell, and I would even say those, unfortunately, that have had severe abuse, and my heart goes out to those individuals. It becomes, you close off, and the learning, that progressing slows down. And that's why I think that, good therapy for those who've been abused is so critical, because we do need that criticism or the loving advice that stings a little bit, so we want to change. Because when it comes from a good place, man, it can really take you in the right direction.
Yeah. Matt was influential in my life in helping me change some habits that I had created. And the reason that I chose to change my habits and was just simply watching a life of perseverance and resilience. And so, yes, while Matt may not be able to take criticism from his wife very well, let me share with you what he's exceptionally talented at. He's talented at persevering, finding things that are good, finding things that are healthy, finding things that help him win, and he will continue and continue to do those things. So much so that he develops a resilience muscle. And not that he becomes immune, but he creates a resilience in his life to continue to have those things enter, to have the gravitate into his world. And I think that it's really incredible, because many people deal with setbacks. Matt, you're not exempt from that, right? And so how do you deal with the setback? What's your mindset around a setback? How do you approach that with your optimism?
Yeah, I guess I don't look at it as a setback, but a step in the process. There's been some times with our software company where something seems impossible to do, or it's taking way too long, and I'll view it as like, well, this is a way that we know that the barriers to entry are hard. This should keep a lot of competitors at bay. Great, this is good to focus on. So, creatively thinking through the positives all the way. In the sales component, you always hear that I got another no, I'm closer to a yes. Mm-hmm. Right? There's the simple version of that and everything in between. But the end all answer is I believe that hope is the core principle that is important. We use the word optimism because it's a more professional type of word. It's a word that we use in like behaviors, and it describes what a person is, an optimist. I personally believe that hope is the true word behind all of those things. And I think that hope is a virtue that we shoot for, and we try to hold into our heart, and it's displayed through optimism and other actions. But that would be my core thing, is that you're always hoping for good, hoping for greatness, hoping for what you want, and let that hope inside you swell to where it drives you to become.
That's powerful. There's a story, Matt, and this is, I hope you'll take away from it the principle. Our listeners will take away the principle of this. There was a study that was done where they took a mouse or a rat, I can't remember, and they put it in a jug of milk, right? And that mouse or water, I don't remember the study that was done, they put it in there and they were going to let it swim until it sunk underneath the water, underneath the milk. And they placed the rat in there, and I think the very first time the rat swam for like 3 minutes, treading water. He couldn't get out, treaded water. And then they rescued the mouse or the rat, right? They pulled him out. They put that same rat back in like 15 minutes later, and I think he X number of hours. It swam for hours. I mean like hours, going from a couple minutes to hours. And they relate it to hope. He had been rescued at one point. He knew that was coming around. He just needed to tread water long enough for that to happen. And I think in our lives, we have these moments where it's like, gosh, we almost just wish all the moments away. We just want to wish them away. And there is some real value in potentially changing our mindset to say, help me endure this well. I have hope that it will end. And I think that has brought me so much courage in my life, just that one piece of hope. The second piece is I have found real strength in picking up a piece of paper and a pen and writing in a journal. I will tell you, my wife will tell you, I am terrible at it. I do not stay consistent with this habit. But when I pick up a journal and I reflect on the day and I think about the things I'm grateful for, or we say, what miracles happened to you today? And we write down the miracles. We have so many little tiny miracles that happen, micro miracles that are happening every day all around us, even in the motion of all the negative that goes on. And that reseats me back into that mindset of gratitude and those things that really matter rather than focusing on the negative.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Jared, I guess that's the idea for the day is keep the hope, keep the optimism, keep the positive energy for our mindsets, stay strong. And also, when you told that story about the rat, it made me realize who's out there that I can give a little hope to. Who can I give a rescue to so they can have a stronger mindset and take those that we love around us and recognize that a little bit of help can give them a lot of hope and a lot of optimism, and our actions matter. So it was beautiful. Thank you.
I love that. Let's all commit to being 8-figure agents with our mindset. Let's all go out and be the one that provides a little bit of hope for somebody else. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow us on your preferred platform wherever you listen to podcasts. Remember, success loves company, so share this podcast with someone who you think might enjoy it too, and let's build a community together. Let's keep the momentum going until the next episode drops. And hey, if you got any questions or topic ideas that you would like us to focus on, send us a message on social media. Again, thanks so much for joining us. Until next time.